Hello and welcome. We are coming to you live from Mykolaiv in southern Ukraine. This is very much the frontier. It is now almost an abandoned city. It is a strategically very important city where Ukrainian forces are feeding their soldiers with weaponry, equipment and everything further afield. This is about 2 hours away from Odessa, which is the major port over here, but Mykolaiv itself is also a very major port and a port where a major hub for shipping, where there is a major dockyard where warships, including the recently sunk warship the Moskva, was actually constructed way back during Soviet times. But the significance of this area in the present context is that it is being frequently bombed. As you can see behind me, this is a hotel, or it was a hotel. It's been struck very recently, and Mykolaiv is an area which comes under attacks in the last several days on a very regular basis. So it's a very major city which is almost abandoned. There is an eerie calm about the city which we've entered a short while back. There are many such sites, as you can see, because the Russians have been attacking using artillery. They've been coming in with missile strikes as well. There was a power facility over here which was struck some time back. Mykolaiv airport has also been very badly hit. The local administration building has been struck as well. And as you can see, this particular hotel as well. All of this at a time when Russia continues its attacks in several parts of the Ukraine. Today there were attacks in the Lviv area, which is several hundred kilometers away from where I am. That's in western Ukraine. I am now in the southernmost part of Ukraine. I'm actually on the Black Sea, which is just a little distance away from where I am reporting right now. And in that attack, which took place in Lviv earlier today, there were 5 people who were killed. Apparently, there were some railway facilities which may have been struck. There have also been attacks in the last 48 hours, 72 hours in fact, in the greater Kiev area. We've come over here from Kiev. Kiev, of course, is in the north of Ukraine. The point being that these sporadic attacks by the Russians continue, and there is, again, a big sense that this is the lull before the storm, as it were, that there is a lot more coming in the days ahead, because a few hundred kilometers to the east of where I am is the city of Mariupol. That is now almost controlled by the Russians, apart from one particular area where Ukrainian forces are deployed and continue to fight off the Russian invaders. But this is the front line. It's as far as any of us can actually go. At least at this stage, it changes on a regular basis. Beyond this, to the east of where I am, is the Ukrainian city of Kherson. Then, of course, there is Mariupol further away, Zaporizhia, which is another area. So those are the sites where there is a sense that the Russians are going to try and pin down Ukrainian defenses, and in doing that, push through or attempt to push through with their forces through the center or a part of the center of the Ukraine to gain territory which would enable them to extend the boundary of the Donbas region. Now, in as much as we've been reporting about the Kiev region in the north of the country over the last several days, it's really important to remember that the bulk of the Ukrainian army, their defenses, their best equipment, their soldiers and their support systems have always been deployed in this region, further east of where I am right now, and of course defensive perimeters along this particular area. That is because they have been waging a war since 2014 in the east and the south of their country. That has greatly intensified, obviously, over the last 50 plus days. But this is the line that they will continue to hold. This is the line they will continue to fight. And they say that there is no question of giving up any part of the Donbas to the east of where I am, or certainly any of these areas over here. For the Russians, attempting to hold on to as much of this country as possible, it would mean that areas like Mykolaiv would continue to be targeted if they are to proceed in the direction of Odessa. Given the extent of the Ukrainian defenses, the support that they are receiving, certainly in terms of intelligence from the West, that would be a very difficult proposition. There is another important factor in all of this, the weather. It's been drizzling just a little bit over here in Mykolaiv, and there has been rainfall which has been taking place further east as well, which really is a factor which the Russians would consider because there is with the land becoming soft, the movement of the tanks, which they rely on very heavily, is likely to be bogged down. There is a sense that the imminent attack which was going to take place, the resurgence of the attack in the south and the east of the Ukraine, may be bogged down because of weather as well. There are very strict reporting rules where I am presently. We have been cleared to actually film in this area. I cannot, for example, film down this road in this direction or that direction. There are very clear guidelines about how you cannot film any post or any Ukrainian military soldiers or any of their equipment. We've actually had to sign a lot of documents before being allowed to come over here on a very restricted basis. We have permission to report over here for just the next couple of hours before we fall back to Odessa. But again, it's almost eerie. And I can only describe this in words to you, and I cannot show you beyond a lot more than what I am right now. We are attempting to do that. That a major Ukrainian city, a hub of shipbuilding activity, with the Mykolaiv port being one of the largest in the world, in fact, in this particular city, it is now a ghost town in many areas. We drove down this particular parts of Mykolaiv, coming to this particular location. Shops were shuttered. Others were completely closed down. Very few people on the roads. That's because a large number of people from this area have actually moved away to areas to the west and to relative safety. But this is the front. This is where the Ukrainians are sort of stepping up their defenses, and as I mentioned, feeding the forces militarily which are deployed further to the east of where I am right now. This is on the Black Sea. Again, it's a strange irony that the ship, the Moskva, which was sunk a couple of days back by the Ukrainians, and footage of which and pictures of which emerged today of the ship actually burning, that was constructed right here in Mykolaiv way back during the Soviet times. So there's a bit of an irony over here that, you know, we should actually be reporting from the place where the Moskva was actually built. She was called the Slava way back in the 70s when she was constructed over here. Changing times obviously reflect that, but the ship itself was struck through a coastal defense battery of Neptune anti-ship missiles which were fired somewhere along the coast over here. So not only was the Moskva built over here, she was targeted somewhere in this region between Odessa and over here, and she was sunk in the Black Sea where she'd been operating for such a long time. So that gives you an idea of what the situation here is. It's similar to the devastation that we have seen in parts of Kiev, albeit in a somewhat lesser extent, but the real worry is that the Russians continue with their missile strikes, their artillery strikes on a fairly consistent basis, and therefore this is an area which is very much at the center of the southern war zone. Earlier, I was at in another part of the Ukraine. We've been crisscrossing this country way up north, not too far from the border with Belarus, and over there we filmed demining operations which were actually taking place. A risky business involving clearing Russian munitions which had been spread over a large area. We bring you that report. The trucks behind me were carrying ammunition for Russian soldiers in this front. They were destroyed and blown up, but in the process, a lot of the weaponry on board, the munitions on board, was strewn across this field over here. What we managed to do is speak to the Ukrainian soldiers involved in the demining operations. It is an extremely risky operation, but these are some of the weapons which they've now been able to find and defuse, as also a lot of the mines over there, the shells over there in this entire area. That's what we're going to be talking about in this special report. Could you tell us what you are doing today? How large an area are you covering?
Можете ли рассказать, что вы делаете здесь сегодня и какую территорию вы покрываете?
Наша група розмінування займається розмінуванням території, на якій велися активні бойові дії.
So our group of miners are working on this field because there was active battles huge battles was on this place. So his team and the miners working with this area and demining the stuff.
Could you tell us what you found so far? What are these anti-tank missiles and mines or shells? What all have you been able to?
Можете рассказать, что это находится, что это за снаряды, это какие-то противотанковые снаряды и что тут лежит?
На даному місці ви бачите зруйновану техніку ворога, яка перевозила боєкомплект.
So in this place you might be seen the vehicles of Russian troops and Russian militaries. Those vehicles are transferring the bombs and all the stuff.
Right. And it's a very dangerous operation. It's a very risky operation. Could you tell us about some of the risks?
Расскажите про риски. Это очень опасная работа. Расскажите про риски, которые могут ожидать людей и вас.
Ризик завжди залишається, і ризик дуже великий. В тому плані, що в даному випадку ці боєприпаси, вони внаслідок вибуху, так як перевозились на транспорті, були розкидані по великій території. І сам боєприпас сам по собі є небезпечний. А якщо він ще пошкоджений, так як він пошкоджений внаслідок вибуху, то ризик виростає в декілька разів.
So the main problem is that that vehicles that was transferring these bombs, so they was blown and destroyed. On cause of bombing, a lot of bombs just covering the territory because of explosions.
Right.
So then these bombs they are damaged. They are damaged. So that's why they are damaged. They more seriously and more dangerous than the simple one. You know?
Isn't it amazing that Ukraine has been able to push out the Russians from this area?
Поделитесь своими ощущениями по поводу, как украинцы вытеснили российские войска с этой территории.
Ну, мені дуже приємно, і я дуже горжуся українським народом,
I'm very proud of the Ukrainian people and militaries, you know.
Який став на захист своєї держави. В даному випадку воюють не лише Збройні сили, а воює повністю весь український народ.
Which defended this territory, but not only militaries, but the simple civilians who took their guns and machine guns just to protect their own land, you know. Not only militaries, but the simple people who took the guns.
All right, so demining operations over there taking place in the very north of this country. But again, we are in Mykolaiv, that lies to the south, absolute south of Ukraine. We've reached a little while back. And as you can see, this is a completely bombed out hotel. This is an area that comes under frequent strikes, artillery strikes, missile strikes as well. It's been happening now for the last 3 days certainly, and every now and again these attacks do take place. So buildings like this in several parts of Mykolaiv have been targeted, and what you see over here is the remains of what was a hotel. I'm just going to walk in this area to actually show you, or try and get in over here to this area. This used to be the entrance of this particular hotel, and the entire roof has caved in, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it by camera. You won't be, because what I'm seeing over here is a gigantic hole in the roof of this building. It's been struck obviously by a bomb, and that's resulted in this entire structure caving in right now. So this gives you an idea. It's a small idea of the nature of the threat. In fact, Sarah, we've also got somebody over here with us who's actually seen some of the attacks taking place. Hi, sir. Thank you for speaking to us. Can you could you ask him, Vlad, how often the attacks have come?
Как часто атакуют город?
Ну, в последнее время почти каждый день.
Each day? Russian attacks each day.
How often?
Как часто? Да,
в основном, да, вот и вчера, ну, каждый день. В разное время суток, каждый день идет обстрел.
Come, why don't you come over here? Come.
Ракетами.
By the missiles, every day by
В
missiles,
основном,
every few hours around the city, and the city bombing by the missiles and other artillery guns all the time.
that sound that...
В основном ураганом ракеты
Uragans, missiles,
с
Uragan systems
кассетными бомбами.
with the cassette bombs.
Притом летят они по всему городу.
These cassette missiles just covered all the streets.
Нет специальной цели, там по жилью, где куда попадет.
Yeah, so bomblets which actually cover a large area, cluster bombs, right?
Yeah, cluster bombs. And
Хвост отрывается, и оттуда высыпаются кассетные бомбы. У нас вот во дворе возле подъезда взорвалось, окна все побили.
Did you see this? Did you see the attack over here?
Сюда бомба, сюда хорошая ракета прилетела. Большая, мощная,
the
тяжелая.
big, huge bomb covered
Вот
the...
сюда, и в
this
администрации, вы же там были, да? Бомбы хорошие улетели.
This place and the administration, we will go another time. So it was a huge bomb from the aviation. It was an aviation bomb.
Right, it was by an aircraft overhead. Which was struck.
Also, rockets are targeting through all the city, and one of the missiles just fell near his building, and the cassettes covered all his territory of his building. He shows his building. He just living in that building in.
Yeah.
Сейчас как сюда вылетела ракета, сюда бомбочка хорошая.
Let's just focus on this as we continue with this conversation. But let me ask you one thing.
When the bomb come to the building, all the windows of his house was broken.
И сзади дом, окна все полетели.
And the house
рядом,
behind this,
во дворе, да.
how this building was broken, all the windows.
Why are you still here? Do you not want to go away to the west?
Почему вы не уезжаете из города, не выезжаете подальше?
Ну, во-первых, у меня 5 правнуков, 2 детей.
He has 2 children and grandchildren, 5 grandchildren, so
Сейчас их бросить, что ли, и уехать?
he can't just leave them.
Мы-то уже, как говорится, выживем. По 79 лет мне сбавить мать.
He's saying that he 80 years old, so
Вот,
he
я
will
волнуюсь
alive,
за молодежь.
but he
Ну и с другой стороны,
want to
что ж,
take care about his sons and grandchildren.
That sound that we were hearing, was that shelling? Could you ask him that sound that we were hearing, was that artillery shelling? What is that?
Да, это ракета прилетела.
It's artillery strikes.
Artillery strikes on this
We
area.
can hear
Да,
now
значит,
artillery strikes.
Дело в том, что сейчас стык Херсонской Николаевской области, и там идут боевые действия.
Ага.
И оттуда, отсюда идет.
А далеко это отсюда?
Ну, километров 30-35.
30 kilometers from this place is border between Kherson region and Mykolaiv region, and a lot of artillery guns are working there, and just battles.
All right. Thank you, sir, very much for speaking to us. Thank you. Well, you know, I've been hearing these artillery. I don't know if you can hear that also. Let's just play that sound. I'm just going to hold the mic up for a few more seconds. Let's see if we can. Yeah. I don't know if Sarah, you were able to actually hear that. There are artillery strikes happening somewhere in this area. We don't know if I don't know if it's a target being struck over here or it's being done by Ukrainian defenders. But this area is now quite active, and I'm going to hand back as we try and assess our situation over here. Back to the studio.